Episode 2, Forged in Fire. A young general stood at the edge of Spain, his eyes fixed not on the land behind him, but on the horizon ahead. Hannibal Barca was only 26 years old, yet he had already become the supreme commander of Carthage's armies in Iberia. To many, he was just the son of Hamilcar, a boy living in the shadow of a great father. But Hannibal was determined to prove that he was more than an heir. He was the living embodiment of the oath sworn in childhood, a man who carried Rome's destruction in his heart like a flame that would never burn out. The soldiers who served him did not see him as a distant ruler issuing orders from gilded chambers. They saw him as one of their own. Hannibal marched beside his men, endured the same hunger, the same sleepless nights, the same wounds. When rivers froze their bones and deserts cracked their skin, he was there, leading from the front. This was rare in an age where generals often watched battles unfold from the safety of hills. Hannibal's presence on the field inspired loyalty not by fear but by love, and that loyalty would carry his army to attempt the impossible. But Hannibal was not leading one people, he commanded many. His army was a patchwork of Carthaginians, Iberians, Gauls, Numidians, and mercenaries from distant lands. Each group spoke a different tongue, worshipped different gods, and fought with different weapons. Most generals would have been crushed under the weight of such division, but Hannibal was a master psychologist. He studied his men as carefully as he studied the terrain. He learned which tribes valued glory, which valued wealth, and which valued survival above all. Then with words, promises, and shared victories, he bound them together. For Hannibal, an army was not a mass of men. It was a living organism, and he was its beating heart. The true test of his command came at Saguntum, a wealthy city allied to Rome. Hannibal knew what striking it meant. War was inevitable. The siege was brutal, lasting 8 months. Hannibal's soldiers starved, battered the walls, and suffered heavy losses. Yet he refused to yield, his determination fueling theirs. When the city finally fell, it was not just a victory, it was a declaration. The message reached Rome like thunder across the sea. Hannibal Barca had declared himself their greatest enemy. Rome demanded his surrender. Carthage's politicians hesitated, but Hannibal did not. He was not a man of hesitation. He saw hesitation as death. Instead of waiting for Rome's legions to descend upon him, he made a decision that stunned the ancient world. He would not defend, he would attack. Not in Spain, not in Africa, but in Italy itself, the beating heart of Rome's power. It was madness and it was genius. To reach Italy, Hannibal would have to lead an army of nearly 50,000 men and war elephants across hostile lands, through the Pyrenees, across the Rhone, and over the frozen walls of the Alps. No general had ever attempted it. Rome believed it could not be done, but Hannibal believed otherwise. His march began with blood. In Gaul, hostile tribes ambushed his men, arrows raining from cliffs as they tried to force his retreat. Hannibal personally rode into the fray, rallying his troops, breaking through the ambush with a fury that left survivors whispering his name. When he reached the Rhone River, another obstacle loomed, a vast, raging current too wide and deep for an army to ford. Hannibal's answer was unthinkable. He built massive rafts to float not only men and supplies, but elephants, terrified beasts that bellowed and thrashed as they were dragged onto wooden platforms, lashed together and ferried across. The sight of elephants emerging from the river, dripping and trumpeting, struck terror into tribes who had never imagined such creatures could exist. But beyond the Rhone, the greatest obstacle awaited, the Alps. White peaks tore into the sky jagged and merciless. Snow fell endlessly, turning paths into icy death traps. Landslides thundered down cliffs. Soldiers slipped, fell, and vanished into the abyss. War elephants, symbols of Carthage's might, slid on ice and perished in crevasses. Starvation gnawed at the army, and desertion loomed like a shadow. Yet Hannibal never faltered. At one point, standing high on a cliff with his soldiers broken and fearful, he pointed beyond the mountains. "There lies Italy," he declared. "There lies Rome." His words carried them forward when their bodies could not. His willpower alone seemed to carve a path through the ice. Against all odds, after weeks of torment, Hannibal led the survivors, reduced to barely half their original number, out of the mountains and into the fertile plains of northern Italy. Rome had been watching Spain. Rome had been guarding its coasts. Rome had not expected the enemy to descend upon them from the Alps with elephants at his side. Hannibal had turned the impossible into reality, and the Romans, for the first time, were a